All right, well, thank you again for your attendance this morning. I think we heard some really good insights from the panel. Change is not only hard, it takes a long time, and it takes persistence, and it takes a little bit of reimagining and re-envisioning along the way, because sometimes where you want to go kind of gets figured out as you're working through that. I am very excited to bring along this next session, which is all of our folks that have very generously volunteered their time to come up and present to us in the 20 by 20 format. I am going to let you all kind of go through and introduce yourself, and then you can get started. Is that okay? All right. Oh, well, and this was something important. This is really stressful. Getting up and doing these presentations isn't easy. So I really want your help in making sure that we're appreciating everyone and their time. So let's give a big round of applause for Diana, who's going to start it off with the first one.
As you go. Hi, I'm Diana Jimenez, the Public Works Office Manager. And I'm going to talk about one of the biggest challenges that we had in Public Works 4 years ago when I started. And then I will talk about what we did to overcome that and maybe how you can do that in your department. I'm going to put a chair up here because I want to feel important too. And I'm going to sit down. So as I started in the department, we talked about what was the problem in our department. And we had a bad culture. We didn't communicate well. We weren't forward thinking. We weren't outcome driven. We had negative attitudes. There wasn't any trust within the teams as well. And we didn't really have a clear vision, right? So in doing that, a lot of people didn't have a purpose. They didn't know their purpose on the team, their value. So a small group of us got together and were encouraged to read the book Good to Great. So in this book by Jim Collins, it talks about two things that we really honed in on. One was to put the right people in the right seats. And the other thing was facing the brutal facts of your reality. So the truth was that we had a bad culture, but what were we going to do about it as a group? So this group, discussed this, and we knew that in facing that reality, it was going to be very uncomfortable. And they were going to have some crucial conversations within the department and get feedback. So we had a small idea. The small idea was to create a roundtable. So this roundtable, we knew that, it was November 2019. We wanted to do this in February. So we had 3 months to create a program that no one had ever done in the department. So how do we do this and what do we do? So instead of starting it off with 300 people in our department, we started with the supervisors and the admin team. So the first roundtable was here at Memorial Hall, February of 2020. And the theme of it was, what's your why? What is your why by Simon Sinek? So in discussing that, we talked about the importance of performance reviews, the importance of customer service, the differences between a manager and a leader. And after we had the roundtable in February, COVID hit. So what do? Sit back, or do you continue to move forward? So what we did is we met again with the supervisors and admin team in September. So we wanted to keep this going. So in 2021, we thought, what do we do next? We offered it to the rest of the team. So the rest of the team had a roundtable for themselves as well here in Memorial Hall. And some of the topics that we discussed was the importance of leadership, attitude, and taking extreme ownership. There is a book by Jocko Williams on that we encourage a lot of people to read. So in 2021, after the roundtables, it makes it a little difficult. What do you talk about at the next roundtable? How do you just make it better the next time? So in 2022, we had another roundtable in February, and we changed the location. We went to the Monarch State. We had it at the Legends Club. We had a good time. It was a good roundtable where we had two separate, one for supervisors and one for non-supervisors. So in September of this year, we decided to do something a little different. We combined both teams. So it didn't matter at what level you were invited to this roundtable to attend. So At this roundtable, we held it at the lake, at the J.P. Davis Hall, and by that time, we already had the Parks and Rec admin team included, the county administrator's office was invited, and we also had commissioners, our roundtable. So in that roundtable, we discussed trust, communication, and value. So you're thinking, what's the outcome? What did you get out of this? There's a lot of, we have a clear vision. Our vision is to build leadership at all levels. I say all levels. It's not just managers, it's not just supervisors. We're all a part of it. We started functioning as a team. We started to collaborate. We also have a motto, we can and we must. Our team has really grown over the years. We have also created a culture of continuous improvement. We also have a culture where it's okay to raise your hand and say, I don't agree with you. Disagreeing is okay in our department. So how do you do this in your department? How do you implement this? How do you create a round table or even a different culture, improve on that? So what you can do is just remember that in order for this to be successful, you cannot have one person. That will never work. So if you think all your supervisors or all your managers have the answer, I will tell you you are wrong. So our small group grew into committees. So every roundtable, we had a different committee. And they met for 3 to 6 months before one roundtable. So it was a lot of work. You had a good conversation, shared articles, shared videos, and we even encouraged each other to read and to grow as a team. So the other thing that we did is went to each division and we had crucial conversations. How do we improve as a team? What are some of the challenges that we're facing? And I do recall going to several divisions and meeting with them by myself. At my request, no supervisor be allowed. Is it uncomfortable? Damn right. Very uncomfortable. So those are some of the things that we did. And the other thing is a planning. Where do you have it? When do you have it? And what topics do you discuss? How do you? So there's a lot of logistics and behind the scenes for this. I will say, in order to be effective, in order to create a culture of continuous improvement, you cannot have one roundtable and expect for it to change everything. You have to continue to put in the work and improving, working on the culture in your work area is a continued thing every year and every day. So remember, from that small idea that the group had, we just needed one person on the screen to believe in the team, to trust us and empower us to create a program to make a big impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much for kicking us off. Judd, you are up next, and you even need me to come up to tell you that.
Hello, I'm Judd Knapp. I'm the current land bank manager. So first I'm going to go through the problems that we have with the land bank. Blank? Apparently it's a technology problem also. All right, so today I'm going to... I didn't do that. Started. All right. So I guess I'm going to have to do this without a presentation. So our first problem that we have is staffing with the land bank. I am currently the only member of the land bank, and it used to be 3 people doing my job, and now I have an increased workload. The next problem is with emails. I'm in an email nightmare. I have so many, all my information used to be gathered by email. And then the next one is phone calls. Phone calls, Each phone call takes 15 minutes, and I repeat the same question over and over again. It takes a considerable amount of my time. And frankly, I really don't get like new homes built with that time I spend. So next one is communication, maybe? And this is a UG problem in general, because by all my problems, I don't really have time to effectively communicate with my neighborhood groups. And man, this is hard without presentation. All right, so what could I do with this? I could, I could just work 40 hours a week and then leave. But you know what? I really enjoy helping people take vacant lots to put houses on them. Or I could work 80 hours a week and be a super employee, but I value my family a lot. So the next option is I could just automate the process. Oh, my. So that's what I chose to do, to automate. This is my current land bank process I have. So this is my entire job on one piece of paper. People come in, first contact, I tell them to identify a lot, and then I ask the question, is the lot buildable, yes or no? Yes. And then I'm like, are you planning to build on this lot? And then if they say yes, then the real process starts. Like this. So my process is I gather all the information by email, I create a presentation, I send it to everybody for review, and then I send it to my Land Bank Advisory Board, staff, and neighborhood groups and commissioners. Review this a month ahead of my standing committee meeting. Then we have staff meetings and Land Bank Advisory Board meetings, and I add all those comments to the PowerPoint, and then I submit the items. I have agenda review to review it with commissioners, and then at the standing committee meeting, I present all the comments that I've received during that time. So next part is the solutions to this. Now these solutions didn't just happen overnight. It took me 2 years to get to this point. And I have a lot of great people here, like Chris Cooley in the GIS department help me a bunch. Jake and Gabe in asset management helped me. So it's definitely not just me doing this. So the first thing was we met with builders and said, how can we make it easier for you to build homes? They gave us a list of data points they needed, and we provided it for them. We got residential new construction on what are buildable lots that are zoned for residential, and then commercial. And then we have yard extensions for unbuildable lots. And the apply button is actually where you apply with the form. And then we have the current land bank options that we have. So I remember one of my problems was I was receiving the same question over and over again, and I was just repeating myself. So the process was too complicated, so I simplified it into a one page. So somebody comes to my front counter, I say, step 1, you need to pick a lot from our app that you just saw. Step 2 is fill out the form, answer these 7 basic questions, and I create a presentation. I present it for you. I think you would be very surprised with how many people run away when I say you have to present at a commission meeting. So I definitely make sure that I present it for them. And then I said, if you're approved, we go into an option process for 1 year where you have get a building permit and secure your financing, then I deed it to you, and then you start to build. So that's my elevator pitch when people come in and wanting to build. So all my transactions up to this point have been through email, and you could definitely lose an email very quickly. So then we created a survey that helped from Crystal and Crystal. They helped me make this survey, and it goes through and just answers all of the questions that I need to make that presentation. And here you're looking at the newest employee in the land bank. It's my new website. This employee doesn't sleep. It's always available because before my webpage one just provided my name, my email, and that was a problem I had before. So this one is a step-by-step process for how to build on a land bank lot. Now, this one is very new, 2 months old. The applicants make my presentations now. So I take that survey data that I already have sitting in the survey, and I push it in here so I don't have to make a PowerPoint again. I would spend days making that PowerPoint, and then there'd be typos on it. So now, this one is the old PowerPoint there wouldn't update. It would just, I made it a month in advance and sent it out to all the commissioners and neighborhood groups. It wouldn't update. And then people would call me, say, this is the problem I have. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of old because it's all already changed. But with my new system, it updates in real time. So they always have the most up-to-date information. I could share it with anyone with an internet connection. And then the next is the bottom corner there. There's a box. It's a survey to collect comments. So it moved it out of my emails into a database now that I could search. And I've gotten very positive reviews from my neighborhood groups. They love this because it's right in one spot. Next one is automating emails. So I have all that information sitting in this database. I could write this email, and I could send out like 40 emails in 5 minutes. And that's a huge time saver for me. Next part, is it working? So this is how many views I've had on that land bank of available properties application. We almost had 10,000 views with that application in 1 year.
Thank you so much. So super shout out to Judd, because it is one of those things. Technology does not always work in our favor. Oh, there you go. Is that one important? That's all your hard work. All the hard work. Excellent. Thank you so much, Judd. All right, next up is Adrian, who's joining us. Now, Adrian was a Vista in our budget department, and actually her last day was yesterday. So I just want to say an extra special thank you for coming after your last day.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. This is my new maiden name, and it's not quite spelled correctly, but that's okay. I'm getting used to the name myself. No worries. So today I'm going to talk about some of the budget office's best practices, and like Ashley said, I've been here for a year, so I'm going to talk about the progress that we've made over that time period. So when I arrived at the UG about a year ago, Michael Peterson, our Deputy Budget Research and Strategy Director, told me that I should look into the GFOA to see what the best practices are for budget offices around the country. And the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, really defines best practices and sets the gold standard for public finance in the US. And in fact, our budget office has won the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the past 6 years. So I knew this was a good place to start. So the GFOA has actually added a requirement this year to receive that award, which is performance measures. So if you have heard from our budget analyst, Richard Rocha, about performance measures, it is because we are trying to add that to our budget this year so that we can hopefully continue to receive this. Another best practice that we have participated in this year is priority-based budgeting, or PBB, which we have assessed to kind of see where we're at in the process and where we should be moving forward. So in my position as a Vista, my focus was in community outreach. So for the rest of my time, I'm going to talk about that and our progress in community outreach that we made this year. So, we started with our social media strategy, which really had a two-pronged approach. On one hand, we wanted to use social media to talk about our departments and the tax dollar funding that they use to provide services to the community. Nope, wasn't supposed to talk about that yet. Okay, these are some of the These are some of the award-winning communities that I looked into first to see what sorts of things they were doing with community outreach that we could try to implement here. And what they really had was interactive programs with their communities and interactive websites and social engagement on social media. So we knew we wanted to implement that sort of thing here. So now, moving on to our social media strategy, we wanted to use social media to talk about our departments and the services that they are providing to the community, and we also wanted to use it to raise awareness of the budget process and so people could get more involved in that. And we worked with departments across the UG to talk about their budgets and the services that they provided, including planning and urban design, parks and recreation, and many, many more. And this is an example of a post we did for parks and recreation that got a lot of comments from the community. And when we had a lot of questions on posts like this, we tried to engage with residents and answer those questions and direct them to further resources where we could. Another thing we did is to make a video series to talk about the budget in more detail. So we actually made two, one on our open budget website and another on the difference between city and county funds. And we put those on YouTube, Facebook, and our website so that people could access them and reference them whenever. Another thing we did on social media was to produce graphics that broke down the tax dollar, and this was one of our most popular Facebook posts that we did this year. It actually shows that the UG collects less than 50% of your typical property tax dollar bill. And on this post, we saw an increased understanding of the issue from last year, and we actually saw residents answering each those questions in the comment section, so that was really cool. Another thing we wanted to do with community outreach this year was revamp our budget survey and our budget public hearings. And so, starting with the survey, we wanted an experience that would require respondents to make the types of difficult decisions that go into crafting a budget with limited resources. And so we landed on the budget simulator, which ended up getting over 100 responses. So thanks to those of you who filled that out and gave us your insightful comments as well. We also decided that we wanted the budget public hearings to be a more conversational experience. And so we partnered with communications to create the Dot Talks, which were 3 community conversations on the budget. And at the Dot Talks, we asked residents what we should start, stop, and continue doing as an organization, which staff may be familiar with from our PBB process. And what we found was that residents actually had a lot more to say about what we should continue doing than what we should stop doing. So let that be a compliment to the organization that we are doing something right. We also heard from residents many priorities that they would like to see us fund, such as street maintenance and park maintenance, and people were also interested in taxes, of course. They said that they were interested in organizational efficiency. And these types of priorities tended to overlap with the things we heard from our community survey. The community survey is the only organizational-wide survey that produces a random representative sample of our public, and so it was great that we were seeing some of those things overlap in our Dot Talks as well. So once we had done our whole community outreach process, we brought those results to the commission, and we found that their priorities actually overlapped with what the public was saying as well. And in the 2023 approved budget, we were able to address a lot of the community's interests by raising COLAs, by increasing infrastructure maintenance funding and parks maintenance funding, and also reducing the county mill by two mills. But although we were able to continue working towards a lot of the community's goals, this budget process was one of our hardest processes we've done as we faced a structural deficit in our city general fund. So that's what this graph is showing, is that projected over time in the city general fund, the fund balance is projected to go downwards and even negative. So wanted to leave you all on a positive note. But as we move into the next budget process, we plan to work with the community again to try and solve these problems. So, thank you.
Well done. another example of doing it on the fly and not being afraid of adversity. Sarah, there you are.
Oh, it already started. I'm going to have some notes. I usually don't use notes, but we have a lot of data to give today. So, hi, my name is Sarah White. I'm an engineer in Public Works, and I'm the project manager of our levees project. This is the biggest project for the UG, and with multiple partners. So, how it started. Wyandotte County has the fortunate gift of having two major rivers in our community. But being close to the river creates problems, and that is flooding. So levees were introduced. The first levee was back in 1909 by Caw Valley Drainage District. And as you can see here, over the years, because of flooding, these levees have raised. So now we are on the Casey Levees project, where we are raising an additional 5 feet to get to a protection for our area. Our community, because we have these two major rivers, has a series of levees throughout the metro, and this is what protects us and the ability to have such a thriving metro. But these projects are expensive. Those last 3 units were all in KCK, and they had a price tag of $529 million. Those were supposed to take about 25 years for us to build because of a 35% cost share. But through the work of advocates like MOARC, Missouri, and Affiliated Rivers Coalition, we were able to get that put into the Bipartisan Act of 2018 and get that project fully funded. A huge win for this community. So this brings us to the Casey Levees project. Design on this started in 2018. With the full federal funding, the caveat is it had to be done in 5 years. There's a lot of words on here, but as you can imagine, a project of this size has a lot of things going on. So the components of this were 17 miles of levee improvements, and that included earthen levee raises, flood walls, relief wells, as well as pump stations. The team had over 200 people. I will say that the team from the UG was more like 5, but the Corps had a lot of people working on it, and they had to design it in a very short time. Unified Government, as a project partner, had a lot of tasks as well. One of the big things was to get all of the easements, and there was over 150 easements that we had to gather. There's also utility relocations and permits. Casey Levees, how's it going now? They started construction back in November of 2021. This is a 5-year construction project. And as you can see here, this was updated last week. Those are all the areas that they are currently doing construction on. So here's some pictures of the construction going on. They are in 9 different areas right now doing construction with over 1 million cubic yards of dirt being moved in to raise these earthen levees, which is a lot. Then we also have pump station repairs and replacements going on. The Argentine contract had 3 pump stations. 2 were full replacements. The Argentine pump station and then the Strong Avenue pump station is being replaced and relocated. And that's a UG owned and operated. So what does a pump station do? The pump station provides interior drainage, so the areas that are being protected by the levee, when it's raining and the river is rising, water can't naturally get out of those levee protected areas. So we have to pump it out. So this is really important because not only is it providing protection from the river, flooding the area, it's providing protection from interior. So with this type of project, we've had a lot of public outreach. The Corps and UG met with every property owner along the levee, which I said was 150 properties. Most of those were business and industrial. And there's also an interactive website, so at any time you can click on it and find out where they're at, what they're doing, and what they have done. So with Corps projects, this is a Corps of Engineers federal project. we have the opportunity for betterments. So this is to leverage the project, include things that the UG would like to see, and then we pay that upgrade. So one of the things that seemed to be a no-brainer were the pumping capacity betterments. So the pump stations that were analyzed by the Corps, they only looked at structural. And so we looked at a capacity upgrade, and we were able to, for not a lot of money, provide that extra safety to our community. The other betterment that we have done is the proposed levee trails. Well, these aren't proposed anymore. These are happening. So the levee trail system is along the levees. The levees provide a great way to encourage people to bike and walk with the views of the river. Also going on at this same time was a lot of momentum down in the stockyards area. And as you can see here, both sides of the river are Kansas. A lot of people don't really know that. So there was 2 developers that came in while we were in design of the levees project, and we really thought this is a great way to look at how we can activate our river. So the Kansas River is a huge asset and is underused. We do not really have access to it, so we got together both internally, UG, as well as stakeholders, and looked at what could our riverfront look like. So this is our vision of the riverfront phase 1. There is a bridge project going on that's going to be an event space, a couple restaurants. That's a public-private partnership. Then we have an apartment complex going in, and a riverfront park, a public riverfront park, a trailhead, parking lot, and then some other future recreational opportunities. So I'm out of time. That's a lot of stuff to cover in a short amount of time. But that last picture you saw was during the 1951 flood. And that really devastated the Stockyard District. That was, it was down adjacent to the river. And that picture was just an indication that, just that flood, over 1 million cattle died just from the stockyards. So floods can be devastating, but luckily with our partnership with the Corps of Engineers, we're able to have these projects to bring in protection, as well as allow us to create a riverfront that hopefully, when they asked about the headline, I would love the headline to be, KCK is a riverfront destination, and really bring in people and to enjoy the river that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I think it's a great example how you can solve one problem with something and address a lot of other opportunities. So I think it's a really great project. I don't mean to sound like we're a little biased towards the Public Works team, but we do have a kind of the Public Works team presenting in this next series. So we're going to have turn it over to the head of Public Works, Mr. Jeff Fisher.
Do I need to stay? Thank you. I don't want to be on the stage. Walk around a little bit here. I'm going to change up what I was going to share because of the outstanding consolidation. I don't know about you all, but I learned a lot from that. And one of the things I thought about the whole time is that's a classic case of leadership. It's a case study in leadership, right? Bold, courageous, unafraid leadership. The other thing that I thought about was something one of my friends showed me from a book she's reading here recently. It talks about the loss of us participating in solutions across the country and in our communities. 25 years ago, we didn't have that problem. We had people like Commissioner Bynum, C.L. Bassick. Yes. But I really enjoyed that story. And I think today, this community is sort of at a similar crossroads. Like the solution's not going to be easy. We need to find solutions. In my opinion, if we grow leadership at all levels and give everybody access to developing those leadership skills, those opportunities will be there for them maybe wouldn't be otherwise. To me, leadership is everything. And it also, without that leadership, you can't have that strong culture. So what is leadership? Let me ask you first, what's the difference between leadership and management? I'm sure everybody has an idea, right? But we use them interchangeably, like they're the same. They're not. Managers make sure things get done and get done efficiently, meet the bottom line. Important work. Leaders, though, empower people, help people grow, help them realize their potential, help create culture. Right? That's how we solve problems, is with great culture. That's how we do the work that this community needs us to do, is great culture. And it comes from solid leadership. I don't pretend to be an expert in leadership. Those are like the Simon Sineks of the world. But what I am is a student of leadership. That's what I've learned to do over time. And our team has been committed to that for a few years now, and it's showing. They're making a difference. They enjoy what they're doing. People are getting opportunities that maybe they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So we wake up, friend Dave Reno said last night during the presentation, we wake up in the morning and we say we're just going to do this, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to be unafraid. We're going to be bold. And so I love doing that. I love working with this team, and I love working with people like you, creating leadership skills so we can all do great work. That Good to Great book. Good is the enemy of great. Anybody read that book? Who in here has read that book? Just a few. I would highly recommend it. If we continue to accept good enough, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. The community's not going to benefit from all we have to offer. We have to raise expectations. I don't know about you all, but I came to this community to do that. I love working in public works. I love working in public service. And I just have strong convictions. We have a great team that have developed. I would definitely encourage the rest of the organization to sort of look at your role differently, empower people, build trust amongst your team. I'm just as nervous as DJ is, by the way, or was. So I'm sorry, I'm not a great public speaker. But leadership is really about building relationships with the people you work with, the people around you, really building relationships so that you have a level of trust and empower them, help them realize their potential. That's all it is. It's really that simple. Okay? Now, leaders also have to be good managers. We still have a job to do. We still have tasks to manage. We still got metrics to meet. We still got goals to meet. We still need strong management skills. So I'm not saying we don't need that. The difference is leaders have vision or work with their team to develop the right vision. They empower people. It's really that simple. So that's all I have. Did I meet 6 minutes? Close enough? All right. All right. Thank you.
Would automatically play? All right. Good morning. Jeff Miles of Fleet, a division of Public Works. And it's not playing. I'm going to pull a Judd here with me. I did it, here we go. And hit play there for me. And hit play down in the corner.
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
There we go. Let's get woke up, right? Here's a Fleet division. Again, Jeff Miles of Fleet Division. In 1997, they unified the government, as we all know. Part of that, a big part of that, was fleet services. They consolidated from 10 different locations to one central location that we call the Fleet Center today, that opened in 2001. Fast forward 18 years, and I joined that great fleet team. I found a team that was full of talent, but unfortunately did not have trust of their customers, as well as a very bad culture, and they had no identity. That was their first team photo in 18 years that they took together. We got together as a group, and we had to see where we were at. Our friend Mr. Reno did a survey throughout the city, the county, the UG, and we seen exactly what we thought. We weren't very good, but we had potential. We had the right people, we just need to put them in the right places. So together, we start building from there with a strategy. The first part is, let's design a fleet logo so we can all get behind. You might see a few of them here today as well. Something that they could rally behind, as well as to tell our customers that this is a new era in the fleet division. From there, we start strategizing what's the next step. We needed an area to meet as a team. That fleet campus, beautiful fleet campus, had no meeting area at all for a team our size. So we invested, converted a fleet tire room into a state-of-the-art training facility that has been used over 200 times in just 2 years. We gave our staff somewhere to go in and actually meet as a team and grow our culture together. Next thing we did, we had to look at our work conditions. We wanted an area that people would want to come to work and actually see. You can see there in the lighting. We added lifts, we added toolings, we added software, things without any additional funding from the budget. We found grants. We worked with some of our customers to come up with some money. Transit contributed a lot. Thank you, CARES Act. Bought tablets for our entire team. Not only does that let them be more productive in their bay, but as well as diagnostic software on each of their computers so they could fix equipment more productive, as well as using it for Workday today, Workday plug. Next thing we did, or the team did on their own, a lot of them took the initiative on themselves to go during work or after work and improve their skill set. You see, there's one of our team members proudly showing off his ASC certification on his shirt that he wears proudly day to day. I'm going to talk about him here later as well. We marketed. Yes, we're a governmental agency, but let's market our services. We do some great things. We got some talent. Let's show it off. Let's let the community see, let the customers see how great we really are. We made a lot of marketing videos to show off our skill set. Roundtable. You guys have heard that numerous times today. Big part of our culture change. Not only did our team participate, they participated on the committees. They were excited to go. It was the first time in their tenure at the fleet campus to be invited to meetings like that. They really embraced it. Our veterans have a voice. Some of our veterans felt like for multiple years they never was heard. So we put those key people in the key positions to allow them to have that voice. And it's just been so great to see them blossom and secure their legacy with the fleet division. Employee spotlights. This is something that doesn't cost a penny to do. But we make these employee spotlights to share them with our customers, to show the new team members to our team, as well as that family member. This gentleman could take that home, put it on his refrigerator, show it off to his family, that we're excited to have him part of our team. We started running as a business. We designed an internal service fund with the budget department that allows us to run like a business without profit, with the efficiencies and the productivity that you see in the private world. We increased productivity by over 50% just that first year. One of our biggest customers, the KCKPD department. We worked with them with our cadet program. We brought the youth in to let them work with our team. The first year it was 1 day, then we expanded to 2 days and grown the program. It was a great, and not only did our staff love it, but these future leaders within our community got to see what we did. As well as we expanded it to the street department, as well as water pollution control. We're going to expand that program off even further next year. Community events. We participated in many community events. Not only are we doing this inside as a team, we need to be a team outside as well. That's the Parkward Pool that a lot of us did this last year, but we did a lot more than just that. They did toy drives. Here in a couple weeks, we're doing a trick or treat thing with the police department as well, just to get the group together, not only during work hours, but after work hours as well, to act like and be a team. Adopt a spot. This is something the Public Works Department did, 57th and I-70, which we're looking for volunteers every 2 months, anytime you guys want to come. But we named it in recognition of Tim Saint, and unfortunately was hurt on the job. And I came back and is a leader today working in our division. He's on a cruise right now, so he couldn't come. This is something I'm really proud about. 3 years ago, we sent a group out to compete against some of the best in the metro area, technicians. And we didn't finish where we thought we should finish. Fast forward to just a few weeks ago, they went to that same event. Not only did we take second place, but we took first place as well. Lastly, we did another survey. Let's see where we're at. Quite a difference from that first one, but we're not settling there yet. We know there's a lot more great things that we can do in our division and continue to grow. The moral of this story is the team was there. The environment wasn't there. We gave them an opportunity to be trusted, to be heard, and empowered them to make a difference in their future. Every last one of them are Wyandotte County residents, and they want us to succeed as well. Now, if you would, give our team a nice round of applause, please.
All right, we're rounding out the Public Works Roadshow, no pun intended, with Mr. David Reno.
Good morning, everybody. Dave Reno, Public Works. You might recognize me from the news. Some folks call me Handsome Dave. You don't have to, but lots of people do if you'd like. I'm a wanderer, kind of like Fisher is. We're running short on time, so I'm going to keep it real kind of concise today. We're going to talk about outcomes, outputs, and strategy, something that I think personally is really, really important. So when I first got to the unified government about 4 years ago, I noticed that not just Public Works, but everybody, maybe particularly Public Works, really good at doing stuff. And we did all sorts of stuff. Folks would show up, hey, look what I did. Other folks, look what we did over here. The problem is that despite all that activity, didn't feel like we were really getting anything done. We were busy all day. Man, sometimes we were working 12, 14-hour days, but we weren't really getting anything done. So it's no secret that in KCK, we have serious infrastructure challenges, right? Our PCI is a 51. That's Pavement Condition Index. That's a score from 0 to 100. 100 is a brand spanking new road. 0 is it's just grass, right? We're a 51. We need to be at a 65. That PCI is declining. Our stormwater system does not generate the revenue that's needed in order to take care of basic maintenance. It can barely respond to its own emergencies, and it's only getting worse. We have serious, serious challenges. So last year, about July, then Mayor Alvey decided we're going to do something about this. We're going to form some infrastructure subcommittees, and he said, commissioners, here's your assignments, Public Works, go figure this stuff out. Well, truth is we had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea. We had the data, we knew what the problem was, but we really didn't know how to get to the solution. But the truth is, we actually did know how to get there. And we get there by learning about it 4 years ago, and it started with the roundtables that DJ talked about. We learned to trust each other. We learned to talk. We learned to have great discussions. We learned how to be respectful. We learned how to disagree. We learned how to brainstorm. And that led us up to outcomes, outputs, strategies. So what exactly is an outcome? An outcome isn't just something that you do. It's something that makes a difference. It's the change that you see in the world. An output, on the other hand, is something that you just do. Now, here's the hang up with outputs. An output without an outcome is wasted time. I'm sure many of you have activities that you do on a daily basis, and you find yourself wondering, why am I doing this? Well, that's probably an output. You got to figure out what your outcomes are, and the reality is that nobody can help you do that. You have to do that yourself. The best way to do it is to start talking with your team. Figure out what matters. So that's what we did with the governing body. We said, hey, you're the bosses. What's the outcome that you want to see in Kansas City, Kansas? Tell us. And they did. They wanted to see a PCI of 65. by 2040. And as staff, as a great team with the data, we figured out how to get there. We said, okay, that's the outcome. Here are the outputs that we're going to need to undertake in order to get there. So what's a strategy? A strategy really isn't that complex. Strategy sounds fancy, but in reality, a strategy is just a collection of outputs. Now, in the private sector, that collection of outputs, you want that to be really hard for your competition to copy, right? You want to be competitive. Here, that doesn't matter. Anybody can copy our stuff. It's called a best practice. In fact, we copy what other cities do. The strategies are the collection of outputs that help PCI achieve your outcome. So on the street preservation front, here's an example of how that works with PCI. So the outcome is a PCI of 65 by 2040. It's going to cost a ton of money. Money is an output. Revenues are an output, right? So we have to think of that side. But are there things that we can do that helps our pavement condition right now today? Absolutely. Pothole patching, that's an output. Crack sealing, that's an output. When you start gathering all these and putting them together, you start to make real progress towards getting to an outcome. I think the final remark on outcomes is that you got to think long-term, right? Outcomes aren't about next week. Public Works' case, outcomes are about 20 years, 25 years from now. These are generational changes. And so I don't expect to see PCI or my particular street that I live on, frankly, get any better in the next 15 years. I don't. That's okay, because it's a long-term plan. We have to stick to it. So next time your group's undertaking your strategic planning or you're thinking about, man, how can we make things better? Think about what your outcome is and then work backwards. What are the outputs that we need to make that happen? And then how can I group these outputs to form a really great strategy for getting us there? I will leave it with that so we have time. Thank you all so much. Again, Handsome Dave, you don't have to call me that, but lots of folks do.
Thank you so much. Amy, where are you? Amy is up next. We just have Amy and 2 more presentations left, and then we have our lunch break. So bear with us. We're getting there. No pressure.
Not going to stand on the stage, neither am I. Hello, everybody. This is what our museum auditorium looked like 4.5 years ago. If you've been into the museum in the last few years, now, this is our meeting room, this is our rotating gallery space. But 4 years ago, we had a problem, clearly. We had this great idea of getting new shelves for our archives. So everything was moved into this room, set down, and then it stalled. And it stalled like that for several years. So we were really incapable of doing many things. So today, we now have shelves. Everything is back in the room where it belongs. But clearly, that state of disarray for a long period of time left us going, Come in, our volunteers. We have a staff of 3. Without volunteers, we would really be nowhere. Our volunteers are a core piece of how we were able to put those archives back on shelves in an order that makes sense, how we're able to answer people's research questions today. But our records still look like this. Anybody remember the library with the card catalog systems? Pretty much museums operate in the same way. Every single item we have has a number and has a card. And we were literally sorting through cards, trying to figure out what we had, where was it, et cetera. And clearly in this day and age, that was not working out super well. Wow, long 20 seconds. But anyways, about this time, we were thinking about the database system we had. We had a database. It was clearly not being used. There wasn't a lot of data in it. And we were looking at new systems. And ultimately, we decided to go with a system called Rediscovery that's used by the National Park Service as well as a number of other small museums. And we got it just before the pandemic began. So we were very excited. I mean, we've got a database, we've got records, but suddenly I'm at home looking like that. Anybody remember that moment where I realized, how do we operate a museum remotely? I mean, I've done lots of digitalization projects, but it involves being at the museum with your records, with your volunteers, and trying to figure out how to go forward. Over the years, I used a service called Volunteer Match, which is a free database, and I put out to the world, hey, I'm looking for volunteers to help with whatever. So we had a few departments that voluntold some people to help me with the database, and thank you if you were any of those people. But I put out a call on Volunteer Match, and shockingly, within days, I had more than 12 volunteers from around the country willing to help transcribe records remotely in the middle of a pandemic. I was a little shocked. I'm like, why would people want to do this? I mean, people were sitting at home watching YouTube with their feet up, but I had all these people that were willing to help. So quickly we regrouped and figured out how are we going to build this program? How are we going to send records out to these people? How do we train them remotely? I mean, we were not set up to do any of this, and I really expected maybe 1 or 2 people to respond, but quickly we had many. So our paper records were also in ledger books. So I was looking at these books and trying to figure out how do we get them into a usable format. So essentially I went to the museum and I used the copy machine and I created PDFs of batches of records and I sent them to people. And I had them put it into Excel spreadsheets according to very specific formulas and wrote all the instructions out for each and every sheet I sent out, and people sent them back. And shockingly, before long, we went from having piles of paper records that we really couldn't do anything with to now we have 50,000 records in our database. And really, without a pandemic, I don't think that would have happened, at least not nearly that fast. I've done a lot of database conversion projects over the years, and they take 4 to 7 years. We got our records in the system mostly in 2 years. Now, granted, there's a lot of work to be done. We're still training volunteers today. And really, I spent a lot of time taking that data that they transcribed and figuring out how to make it as standardized as possible to put it in the system. It was not a quick fix, but it was a project that suddenly the world gave us an opportunity to do. And I had great volunteers that would sit at home and ask questions. They'd be like, well, why is it this way? I actually had people that took initiative to make these records better, so I didn't have to do it. One of the volunteers, her name is May Lou. She lives in New Jersey. She has no connection to Wyandotte County, but she helped several museums with projects like this over the years. She worked with museums in San Francisco, as well as, I think, Chicago. But this is an example of how teamwork really led to success. We would have never done this with our staff of 3. We would have never done it with the volunteers we had in the same amount of time. But this really gave us the jump start to what we have today. So this is a sample photo page of what our database looks like. It does have a place for pictures. We're quickly uploading photos. So now I think we have more than 6,000 or 7,000 photos in the database, and one day it will be publicly searchable. This is May, who I mentioned. She has been awesome. After she finished transcribing all the records I had, she still wanted to help. And I'm like, well, what can we do with this person? We need to find more projects. So she's transcribed cemetery records, naturalization indexes. I mean, you never know where you might find a volunteer who's really dedicated and wants to be a part of your team. Today, we have to keep going back to our paper records. There's a lot of things that need to be double-checked in person, and we have a lot of volunteers that are helping with inventory. Today, there's about a 50-50 chance that we have a location for the objects in our database, which is great progress for us, so we're not playing a scavenger hunt game every day. But really, this leads me to the big picture of you can never say thank you enough. You never know where volunteers are going to appear, but they're part of your team and really need appreciation. Thank you.
All right, we have Julianne Van Loo from the Public Health Department. And I apologize, we actually have to skip over this one. Monica was unable to join us. Jump to the...
I'm going to stand on the stage because I'm just not tall enough here. Did you all see me? Actually, I need to look at this screen right here. I'm Julianne Van Loo. Hi, if you don't know me, I run our health department. It is a tremendous honor, and I love it. Today, I'm going to talk about our community health improvement plan, but not necessarily what's in it and why we do that, but how we do it, the process we put into place to make sure that collective action can actually happen. Are we started? Go. Okay. I just got a few extra seconds. Sorry about that. Here we go. Okay, so The health department works with over 150 partners in the community very actively, right? We work with schools and public safety and businesses and all sorts of folks. We do this because our understanding of what impacts health is really broad, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But how do we do collective work together with 150 partners? Do we just create a gigantic task force and get around a room and hope that it happens? No, we put a structure and a system in place. So Wyandotte County has poor health outcomes. You all already know this. This is pulled from the county health rankings, which year over year show us to be one of the least healthy counties within the state of Kansas in both health outcomes and health factors. But the situation is more complicated than it seems. Our health outcomes are poor because of all of these things that we can see here, right? Housing, education, social services, government, transportation, healthcare, these are all of the things that make us healthy. Your physiology, that's about this much of what makes you healthy. The things I can control in a health department, that's about this much of what can make you healthy. But all the stuff that happens in our communities, that's where the opportunity lies. So if that's where the opportunity lies, how do we work on this stuff together? So we create what we call a community health improvement plan, where we take some messy problems that are too big for an organization to handle, and we come up with collective solutions of how we're going to do that work together. So our community health improvement plan, we're in year 4, and it is a fantastic example of the collective impact model at work. So out of our community health improvement plan, there are 4 priority areas. I know a lot of you know this: jobs and education, healthcare access, safe and affordable housing, and violence prevention. And again, within each of these 4 areas, we have 30 to 40 partner organizations in the community that are working with us collectively on strategies that we have built that are actually showing some outcomes, right? So how did we do that? Again, we didn't just create a task force. We use what we call the collective impact model. And the collective impact model tells us we need 5 conditions for collective change on very messy problems: a common agenda, data, reinforcing activities, communication, and a backbone or coordinated agency. I'm going to talk about what that means. You can't do collective work if you don't have a common agenda. If I see the problem one way and you see it very, very, very differently, we're not going to get there. So you have to create a shared common understanding of the people at the table with you. You have to create a vision that you all can see, a vision that each of the partners at the table can figure out how they can become a part of. You cannot do collective work if you don't have a common agenda for change. You have to have shared measurement. You have to collect data together. You have to work on performance management. Not super fun, right? But this is the work that you can't just do organizationally. You have to do as a collective. And you have to put in mechanisms into place for shared accountability, right? How do we hold each other accountable as partners who aren't necessarily funding one another or at the table willingly? How do you create accountability in those instances? We have to have reinforcing activities, right? So you have to have an actual plan of action. That's the booklet itself. That's the community health improvement plan that has our strategies and objectives within it. And you have to have approaches that each organization is working on at the individual level, and that includes strategies that you're working on collectively, right? So those differentiated approaches are primary prevention, secondary, and tertiary. You also can't do collective impact if you're not communicating all the time. Talking all the time. Talking those 150 partners hear from us every week or every other week. We're meeting with them constantly, but it's not just that we're communicating, we're building trust. We're building trust by being willing to have really hard conversations. We disagree with one another a lot. If you attend any of our CHIP action teams, you'll see there's not always complete agreement. That's the way we want it. That indicates that there's trust in the room. And fifthly, you cannot do collective impact if you don't have paid staff time to help facilitate this work. You have to have organizations with FTEs that are dedicated to the collective, that are dedicated to this team collectively achieving success. And you have to have resources and skills among your team members to convene and facilitate that. So I said we've got our 4 priority areas, right, in our CHIP. Now we need to take those 5 elements of the collective impact model and actually put them into our CHIP and ensure that they create a structure that's going to set us up for success and for that accountability that I talked about, right? And that's difficult to do because, again, each of these 4 areas, they have 30 to 40 partners in the community. So the first thing you do is you build an actual structure. You can see here at the top of our CHIP structure, we have a steering committee. But what's a little more important than that, I would argue, centered towards the top is the health department as the backbone support. So we are facilitating and leading a collection of 150 agencies, but we have paid staff time. That's incredibly important, and it's the reason why so much collective work fails. Within our CHIP, we have a common agenda for change. As I mentioned, we always use the data. It's a lot easier for us to come up to a common understanding for change if we're looking at the same data. If you're bringing yours and I'm bringing mine, we can have a narrative about that. We'll also acknowledge that we don't have the answers. The health department does not have the answers. The collective has the answers, right? That helps us come up with that common agenda. We share measurement. We set outcome objectives, as Dave Reno was just talking about, right? Strategies need outcomes They need outputs, those need to be identified, and they need to have clear owners, right? We require our partners who are doing this work willingly with us to submit quarterly and annual reports. That speaks to dedication, right? They're willing to submit reports to somebody not funding them. Thirdly, we do more mutually reinforcing activities. So all these 150 partners I'm talking about, they're all working on these messy problems within their own organizations, and they're working on these strategies together, right? We have MOUs between lead agencies and the health department. So even though we may not be funding folks, we have written agreements for the ways that we will work together, the things we commit ourselves to, the things we can expect from one another as partners working together. We communicate always, all the time, right? We have very consistent meeting schedules. We have consistent points of contact, and you can't overstate that enough. There has to be consistency within organizations for this to work. We do a lot of emails. We have a chip listserv, all this stuff. But again, this communication only works because we've built trust with these partners. And then lastly, we have implemented that backbone support. This is the way that so much collective work fails. We have staffed within the health department backbone support. Each of our 4 lead agencies also have paid staff time that they have committed to this collective work because they want to be at the table, but because they share that same vision that we share because we've created that vision together. So again, you can see we've got our steering committee, health department as backbone support, and then we have these action teams and lead agencies. So these 4 agencies, Wyandotte, Economic Development Council, Vibrant, Crosslines, and Moxa, these are partners who have stepped up to the nth degree, even beyond a lot of our other partners, to say, we are going to put our space at this table in writing, and we are going to commit to this work with you. Wyandotte can do this work. Messy problems like we have around housing, transportation, and violence, they require complex solutions. Complex solutions require collective action. Very little I can do as a health department by myself. And collective action requires a common agenda, data, reinforcing activities, communication, and backbone support. So if you hear anything from me today, it's that if you're working together with community partners on anything, I hope you pick a model, because work doesn't just happen by convening people. It happens by building a structure and making sure that you have elements in place that will lead to success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julianne. All right, we have our closing presentation for the morning session. No pressure, you precede lunch, but welcome. All right, I think.
Okay. Good morning, my name is Mark Heath. I'm Assistant Chief with the Fire Department. I focus mainly on EMS, and so riding in on this, I think they're getting my slide deck up here. I'm going to talk about community healthcare and community paramedicine. It's a little baby program I've been incubating since 2017. Finally got some traction in the last year. Here we go. So I'm happy to be here. I'm actually a class of 10-1 of 97, so 25 years. It was kind of cool. My class started right when the UG started. And I'm also going to have a lot of stock photos. I wish I had exciting photos, but what we're going to talk about today is kind of a slower speed, and the people that we go in to see in their homes don't want us taking photos. So, the current service model in EMS and KCK is high-speed EMS. You call 911, we have a fleet of trucks and equipment and firemen that will show up and handle the issue. Where we have people falling through the cracks is Mrs. Smith wants a quick and fast response, and she gets that. This stat here shows us where we are. This is real time from last night. You need an ambulance within 12 minutes of your time of the house that we're going to call to. 99.29% of the time, for 13,000 calls, I have an ambulance on scene. That's for the majority of calls. The other calls were 92%. The health system in the USA, COVID gave us a wake-up call. If you don't think there's problems in the healthcare in the United States right now, we are on the verge of collapse at different times. COVID was a wake-up call. We will need to be prepared much better than we were before. Well, long wait times, ambulance staffing, things like that. We need to get back to the basics. Slow speed EMS, in home, taking care of people like old Doc Johnson came to the house. That's the model we need to get back to. What I've done, and I've pitched this for a few years, we've had this idea for a while, is to get medics into the house when it happens and take a high-tech approach to old school medicine. We have telemedicine now. We have all the laptops, all the cradle points, all this gear, but I didn't have an option other than I can take you to the hospital or you can sign the refusal. And I'll give you some examples of how we've had successes with this program because I've just not had other options. So the previous attempts in 2017, we started with a couple private health agencies with insurance companies. but we felt there was a problem with, oh, you're Blue Cross? Sorry, he gets better care because he's got Aetna. And we didn't want to create that problem in our community. Started discussions with KU Med, large organization. We were going to do a very extremely focused program with only congestive heart failure patients, and it kind of died with COVID. Meanwhile, in the late 2020, we ran into Vibrant Health. Who's Vibrant Health? I've heard of it, but I didn't know who they were. Anybody know who Turner House was? They've been here since 1990. They've been around. They're a great organization. Have 4 locations in the metro now. They are awesome. They've been a great partnership. We got this born and launched in October of 2021. It's been a fantastic program. We've got great stats from this. We're doing good in the community. Skip forward. So the community medicine program and what we're doing is I've got a nurse practitioner and a paramedic that can go out to the house when my crews identify or we get referrals from hospitals. Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Jones just needs a little bit of help. She just needs a little bit of ideas. This is Jessica and Erica, absolutely the best people. You got to get the right people in the right job. They are passionate and love what they do. Our standard workflow, we take patients in, work them through, develop a custom developed plan based on identified needs, and we keep following up. It might be one visit, it might be one day a week for 10 weeks until we get their problem solved or we can get them plugged into things. Some of the examples, and I'm gonna whip through them pretty quick. I'll give you one or two in depth and we'll skip through the others for time. Mrs. A was a middle-aged female with a middle history illness. She kept calling us for blood pressure checks all the time, which means you're getting an ambulance and a fire truck. Man, we're whipping through these. We'll skip, but we reduced her calls to 911 by 73%, and the patients that we keep having contact with, we reduced their time calling in or being transported by 85%. So we have to start looking at the metrics and the money of that. Funding sources. I am not going to miss an opportunity with all the ACAs and county commissioners in here to probably say, I'm going to need some funding in the future on this. Vibrant right now got us the grant. They have put this on the road. Every other community paramedic program in the state of Kansas has withered on the vine and died due to funding. And so eventually Vibrant might ask us to start putting our share in, and it's a fantastic program. When I ask for all my expensive toys and trucks and things that are out there and how we're doing things, this is the cheapest, most bang of the buck way to get programs and way to get people help. You run across that car, these ladies, tell them thank you. They are super passionate and compassionate and they want to do great things. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, that was a bit of an experiment, and I hope you appreciated all of their hard work.